Future faking. Future faking is a manipulation tactic where someone makes elaborate promises about the future they never intend to keep. They paint vivid pictures of trips you'll take together, dreams you'll build, goals you'll achieve as a team. At first, it feels like hope. They talk about moving in together, getting married, starting that business, finally going on that vacation you've always wanted. The promises are specific enough to feel real. They might even plan details, look at houses online, or talk about baby names. Your brain latches onto these promises because they feel like commitment. You start organizing your life around a future they've described. You turn down opportunities, stay in situations that hurt you, or excuse bad behavior because you're investing in what's coming. But the future never arrives. When you bring up the promises, they get vague. The timeline shifts. Suddenly it's not the right time, or circumstances changed, or you're being too pushy. The goalposts move, but the promises keep coming. New ones replace the old ones, each just as detailed, just as convincing. This keeps you hoping, waiting, stuck in a cycle of disappointment masked as patience. Future faking works because humans are wired to trust patterns and words. When someone describes a future with you, your brain begins treating it as real. You make sacrifices for something that only ever existed in conversation. The promises aren't plans. They're tools to keep you compliant, distracted, and emotionally invested while they get what they need right now. Intermittent reinforcement. Intermittent reinforcement is a manipulation pattern where someone gives you affection, attention, or kindness unpredictably. Sometimes they're warm and loving. Other times they're cold and distant. You never know which version you'll get. At the beginning, they might shower you with praise, gifts, and attention. Your brain registers this as the baseline, the standard you can expect. Then suddenly, without warning, the warmth vanishes. They ignore your texts, criticize you, or act like you don't exist. Confusion sets in. You replay everything, trying to figure out what you did wrong. Then, just as suddenly, the kindness returns. They're sweet again, attentive, apologetic. Relief floods through you. Your brain releases dopamine because the reward came back. But here's the trap. That unpredictability makes the reward more addictive than if it came consistently. Your mind stays locked in, always scanning for signs, always hoping the good version returns. You work harder to earn the warmth, believing if you just do enough, say the right thing, or behave perfectly, the coldness will stop. But the pattern continues. The kindness comes and goes randomly, keeping you in a constant state of anxiety and hope. This same mechanism is used in gambling. Slot machines pay out unpredictably because random rewards create obsession. You keep pulling the lever, believing the next try will hit. Intermittent reinforcement turns love into a game of chance, where the possibility of affection becomes more powerful than affection itself. Moving the goalposts. Moving the goalposts is a manipulation tactic where someone constantly changes the rules or standards so you can never succeed. You meet their demand, but suddenly, that wasn't enough. They wanted something else entirely. At first, they tell you exactly what they need. Clean the house, and they'll be happy. Finish the project, and everything will be fine. Apologize, and you'll move forward. You do it. You meet the standard they set, then they shift. Actually, you didn't clean thoroughly enough. The project needed more detail. Your apology wasn't sincere enough. The original goal vanishes, replaced by a new requirement you weren't told about. You try again, working harder this time. You meet the new standard. They move it again. Now there's another problem, another expectation, another way you've fallen short. The target keeps drifting further away, no matter how fast you run toward it. Over time, you stop trusting your own judgment. If the rules keep changing, how can you ever know what's right? You become hyper-vigilant, second-guessing every choice, trying to anticipate what they'll want next. Your confidence erodes because success becomes impossible. Moving the goalpost works by destroying your sense of competence. When nothing you do is ever good enough, you start believing the problem is you, not the system. You shrink yourself, work harder, and accept blame for failing standards that were designed to be unreachable. The goal was never for you to succeed. The goal was to keep you trying. Weaponized incompetence. Weaponized incompetence is a manipulation strategy where someone pretends they can't do something so you'll stop asking them to do it. They act helpless, confused, or incapable until you give up and handle it yourself. At first, they agree to help. They'll do the dishes, watch the kids, handle the paperwork, book the appointment, but when they do it badly. The dishes are still dirty. The kids are unsupervised. The forms are filled out wrong. The appointment never gets made. You correct them. Explain again, show them how. They nod, agree, then mess it up the same way next time. Eventually, frustration builds. Redoing their work takes longer than doing it yourself from the start, so you stop asking. You take over the task permanently. They've trained you to expect nothing from them. This gives them freedom while burying you under responsibility. The manipulation hides behind excuses. They claim they forgot, didn't understand, or weren't taught properly. They position themselves as the victim of unfair expectations while you drown in labor. Over time, you accept this division as natural. You become the responsible one. They become the one who can't be trusted with basic tasks. Weaponized incompetence works because calling it out feels cruel. How can you be angry at someone for trying and failing? But the failure is deliberate. They're capable when it benefits them. They suddenly remember how things work when it's something they want. The incompetence only appears when the task serves you. Moral licensing. Moral licensing is a manipulation tactic where someone does one good thing, then uses it as permission to do something harmful. They build up credit through a kind gesture, then cash it in to justify bad behavior. At first, they do something thoughtful. They help you with a project, listen to you vent, buy you a gift, or apologize for past mistakes. You feel grateful. The gesture registers as proof they care, that they're trying, that things are improving. Then they use that goodness as a shield. After being kind once, they feel entitled to be cruel. They snap at you, ignore your boundaries, or do something selfish. When you object, they point back to the good deed. Remember when they helped you? Remember how much they've sacrificed? That one act of kindness becomes a weapon to silence your complaints. You start second-guessing yourself. Maybe you're being ungrateful. Maybe you're focusing too much on the negative. They did something nice, so perhaps you should tolerate the harm. Your standards lower because the good moment gets used to erase multiple bad ones. Over time, the ratio becomes absurd. One apology covers 10 insults. One favor justifies weeks of neglect. They do the bare minimum of decency, then leverage it endlessly. Moral licensing works because people want to believe in fairness. If someone does something good, it feels wrong to call them bad. But morality doesn't work like a bank account. Kindness doesn't purchase the right to harm. Goodness can't be stockpiled and spent. Each action stands alone. Selective memory. Selective memory is a manipulation tactic where someone remembers events in ways that benefit them while erasing anything that doesn't. They rewrite history to make themselves look better and you look worse. At first, something happens. An argument, a promise, a hurtful comment. You remember it clearly. The words they said, the tone they used, the way it made you feel. You store it as fact. Later, you bring it up. They look confused. That never happened. You're misremembering. You're being dramatic. They flip the story completely. Actually, you said those things. You started the fight. You broke the promise. Their version sounds so confident that doubt creeps in. Maybe your memory is wrong. Maybe you did misunderstand. You start questioning events you witnessed firsthand. Over time, you lose trust in your own perception. If they can deny things so convincingly, perhaps you really are unreliable. You stop bringing up the past because every conversation becomes a debate about what's real. They never apologize because, in their version, they never did anything wrong. Selective memory works by eroding your confidence in truth. When someone denies your reality repeatedly, you begin wondering if reality itself is negotiable. You accept their version to avoid conflict, even when you know something feels off. This gives them control over the narrative. They shape the past to justify the present, and you're left with no solid ground to stand on. History becomes whatever they need it to be. False urgency. False urgency is a manipulation tactic where someone creates artificial pressure to force you into decisions before you can think clearly. They make everything feel like an emergency, so you act on emotion instead of logic. At first, they present something that needs immediate attention. You have to decide right now. The opportunity will vanish. The deal expires tonight. Someone else is interested. If you wait, you'll lose everything. The pressure feels real. Your heart races. Your mind scrambles to evaluate options under a ticking clock. You feel paralyzed between acting too quickly or losing out completely. So you choose. You commit before you're ready, sign before you've read everything, agree before you've considered alternatives. Relief washes over you. The urgency passes. Then you realize the deadline was fake. Nobody else was interested. The opportunity wasn't disappearing. They invented the time limit to stop you from thinking, researching, or consulting someone who might talk you out of it. If you'd had time, you would have seen red flags, asked questions, or simply said no. False urgency works by hijacking your fear response. When your brain perceives a threat or a closing window, rational thought shuts down. You move into survival mode, prioritizing speed over accuracy. Manipulators know this. They manufacture crisis to bypass your judgment. Real urgent situations are rare. Most decisions can wait. When someone insists you decide immediately, they're not respecting your process. They're eliminating it. Victim reversal. Victim reversal is a manipulation tactic where someone flips the situation to make themselves look like the injured party when they're actually the one causing harm. They turn your pain into their persecution. At first, you express a legitimate hurt. They did something that upset you, crossed a boundary, or broke your trust. You bring it up calmly, hoping for acknowledgement or an apology. Instead, they crumble. Suddenly, they're the one who's suffering. You've attacked them. You've made them feel terrible. How could you be so cruel? They cry, shut down, or lash out in self-defense. Your concern for them kicks in automatically. You shift from seeking an apology to offering one. The conversation that started with your pain ends with you comforting them. Your issue gets buried under their emotional reaction. Over time, you stop bringing things up. Every attempt to address harm results in you apologizing for hurting their feelings. You learn that your pain causes them distress, so expressing it feels selfish. You swallow grievances to keep the peace. They've trained you to protect their emotions at the cost of your own. Victim reversal works because most people are wired for empathy. When someone shows distress, your instinct is to help, even if their distress is a performance designed to dodge accountability. They weaponize your compassion, turning every confrontation into a referendum on your cruelty. You become the villain in a story where you were trying to heal. Accountability disappears because the person who caused harm successfully rebrands themselves as the one who's wounded. Information withholding. Information withholding is a manipulation tactic where someone deliberately keeps you in the dark to maintain control. They give you partial truths, leave out key details, or hide facts that would change how you see the situation. At first, they tell you something. A plan, a story, a decision that affects you both. It sounds complete. You trust the information and make choices based on what you know. Then, later, you discover what they left out. They were talking to their ex the whole time. They'd already decided before asking your opinion. The job offer had conditions they didn't mention. The financial situation was worse than they said. Suddenly, everything shifts. If you'd known the full truth from the start, you would have acted differently, chosen differently, protected yourself differently. When you confront them, they shrug. You never asked. They didn't think it mattered. You're overreacting. Technically, they didn't lie. They just didn't tell you everything. The responsibility lands on you for not asking the right questions. Over time, you become paranoid. You start interrogating every statement, looking for gaps, wondering what else you don't know. You can't relax because trust requires complete information, and they only offer pieces. Information withholding works by keeping you off balance. When you don't have the full picture, you can't make informed decisions. You operate in a fog they control. They decide what you get to know and when, keeping power firmly in their hands while you stumble through partial truths. Over-Justification. Over-Justification is a manipulation tactic where someone buries you under endless explanations and reasons to make questioning them feel impossible. They talk so much, provide so many details, and sound so reasonable that disagreeing seems irrational. At first, you ask a simple question. Why did they do something? Where were they? Why did plans change? Instead of a straightforward answer, they launch into a lengthy explanation. They describe every step of their day, every thought process, every external factor that influenced their decision. The story includes names, times, locations, irrelevant background context. It sounds thorough, almost too thorough. Your brain gets overwhelmed trying to track all the information. By the time they finish, you've forgotten your original concern. The sheer volume of words makes their answer feel credible. Surely someone lying wouldn't provide this much detail. You accept the explanation, not because it satisfied you, but because challenging it requires untangling a mess of information. When you try to question one part, they add more layers. They expand on side details, introduce new characters, loop back to earlier points. The conversation becomes exhausting. Eventually, you give up. Not because you believe them, but because continuing feels pointless. Over-justification works by weaponizing transparency. Honest people give clear, direct answers. Manipulators hide lies inside mountains of truth. They bury the deception under so much talking that finding it becomes impossible. The explanation isn't meant to clarify. It's meant to confuse, exhaust, and ultimately silence you through sheer informational overload.